we decided to what we call design our life. And this is pretty rare. I don't think people design their life or what we call live a life by design. And it's not because they can't or won't, it's because they've never even heard this.
Totally.
This is The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. Whether you're a seasoned real estate expert, a first-time home buyer, or if you're simply passionate about hearing small business stories, this is the podcast for you. Join us as we dive deep into the world of real estate and beyond.
All right, welcome to episode 26 of The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. I am your host, Janine Igliani. My co-host today is Ryan Hatcher. And our guest today, and it's so funny because just in thinking and prepping for this, Jason, I always say like, I'm so excited because I genuinely am excited for our guest, but I am really excited to have you. So it's Jason. And Jason is not only a fellow realtor, he's an investor, he is a solid man of God, he's a family man, and he's just like you're just a cool dude. That's what I would tell my team. Like, Jason's just like a cool dude. So I'm super excited to have you and have this conversation.
Very nice of you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome.
Which is expected for me to say that, right?
Right? We're all
You better be.
excited.
I'm excited to be here.
It's a cliche thing. So before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, tell us about yourself, where you're from, and just kind of all of that.
Yes. So I'll do this short because people don't care. I'm from Florida. I moved to Arizona in 2006 with my wife. Her family owned a 1,000-cow dairy farm in Mesa, and I was just dating her. We got engaged, and her brother called her home and said, "Hey, I want you to come back and work on the farm. That they're building houses. The freeway, the 202 at the time wasn't there." And he said the kids would come over and ask if brown cows made chocolate milk. And he was like, I want to teach them where their food comes from.
I love it.
So my wife's like, I want to move to Arizona and work at this dairy farm. And I thought it was the dumbest idea ever, but I'm engaged. So I said, babe, that's a great idea. Let's do this. And I honestly thought we'd go, it would fail within a year. We'd come back to Florida. So, and I would let her do her dream, right? And we've been here ever since. So it was wildly successful. It was super awesome, actually. So for a lot of people, I walk on the streets, people like kids are like, that's Farmer Jason. Because
Is that the one that was right there where the
Superstition Farm on Hawes and Elliott Road. So they built that in 1978, and I worked there for a lot of years, and we had maybe 20,000 kids from schools that would come every year, preschoolers, kindergartners, sixth graders.
That's awesome.
And we'd teach them about where their milk comes from. So it was pretty cool. And but if you've ever worked with family, I don't know if you guys ever have worked with family, it's pretty rough and tough sometimes. And I told my wife one time, I was like, if we're going to eat Thanksgiving with these people, we got to go. Like, we have to not work with these folks. And so we left, and that's when I became a real estate agent. So that was back in 2014. I loved working at the farm because we had opportunities to meet people and to get to know them. So when people came in the door, I would say, hey, Sarah, and I'd know their kids were Jake, and they would come in every week. And I loved that part of the business. So I wanted to work in a business where I could do that still, not just transact, but actually get to know people. And real estate just came in my head. My Aunt Bitsy, she was a real estate agent, and she's from Alabama and Tennessee area, like super Southern, super kind, but she will tell you 100% like how it is. And I called her one day and I said, Aunt Bitsy, you think I'd be good at this? And she's the kind of person that would be like, Jason, and you guys have had people many times, I want to get in real estate. And you almost always say, it's not, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, it's a tough deal, right? She said, I think you'd be great at it. And I knew she wouldn't lie to me. Like, she believed that. I told my wife, I was like, Bitsy said I could do this. Like, I can do it. And so that's how I started real estate. That's cool. Yeah.
So that was in 2014.
2014, yep.
And then you and I have connected just through the real estate world, but then also our kids going to school together. That's right. They're really good friends, which is so fun. They've been friends for a long time. I love that. And then, connecting with your wife. We've just had such fun family, or interactions and all of that. But one of the things that I, from a distance, have really admired and respected about you is the way that you go about building your business. So can you talk about that?
So how do I build my business? So what I knew early on, I wanted to have relationships. Like, that's, and by the way, maybe a fault of mine because I don't pay for any advertising necessarily. I don't buy leads. I don't do anything.
That's how we are.
Yeah. And so I think about it all the time. I know you do. You're like, oh, I probably should go all in on this or that. I just never do it because I like that. Okay, here's the deal. When I first worked with this guy named Matt, I won't say his last name, but his phone would ring. And I'd hear him talk to someone and he got a phone and I'm like, who's that? And he's like, oh, it's one of my past clients, or it was a referral or whatever. I got to go meet with them today at 2:00 to about sell their house. I'm like, someone just called you, dude? Like, blew my mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, it takes some time for that to build that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I knew that's what I wanted. And then of course, you get leads that come to you out of the blue and it's just not the same. You know what I mean? Warm leads just different, right?
It is.
And it's just more fun. Let's just put it that way. So
I totally agree.
that's what I wanted to do. My social media stuff, like I don't really talk a lot about real estate on there because I don't know, if my dentist posted every day about you need to have your teeth cleaned, I'd be like, dude, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't talk about it all the time. But I do know that the average person will forget what you do every 13 days. So I know you have to not be a secret agent and every once in a while mention, hey, by the way, I am a real estate agent.
Yeah.
But mostly I just, to me, I think, how do I convey to the world that like I am a good man, like I am worthy of an opportunity to at least discuss the opportunity to sell your house or to work with you in some way. So the way I connect with people is like getting to know them, right? Becoming friends with them. And so my social media is very purposeful. I'm posting about my family.
Yeah.
I'm letting people see my kids grow up and what they're doing and what my family is involved with. So that when the average person every 5 to 7 years is going to sell or buy a house, that they think, oh, dude, that guy, Jason, I really like that guy. I feel like I know him.
Yeah.
So when I do meet with them, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know who this person is. Like we're friends on Facebook or something.
Right.
And you're like, kind of recognize that you're meeting with them, but they're like, so how is Chloe doing?
Yeah.
How's Violet? And
Yeah.
you're like, these people know everything about me.
Totally.
And, And so, it's just a good feeling. You know what I mean? It's just a good feeling. So that's really all I've done to build my business was just to treat people the right way.
Yeah.
And, I always lean towards, like, if there's any kind of discrepancy in any way, just always lean towards them, always go above and beyond, over communicate.
Yeah.
Is a big one.
Yeah.
Recently, by the way, went to that Tom Ferry event.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've done this yet, but they recommended that, you start building a personal brand or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, how do I know what my brand is? Like I could guess what I think people want from me,
Mm-hmm.
but he had recommendation of throwing all your reviews into ChatGPT and then basically asking it, hey, what does your client say about
Yeah, I
you?
love
Right.
it.
So I pasted a couple hundred reviews in there
Nice.
and asked it like, hey, who am I?
Yeah.
And I was so surprised at what
So
it
I wanna
said.
hear.
Really?
So it had 10 different things. Obviously, I'm not going to like go hard into like, hey, here's the 10 things. But kind of like the major things was that my clients said about me over and over again that they love that I communicate well. I'm always available. I would never run an ad like, by the way, I pick up the phone.
Yes.
Okay. I just want you to
Yes.
know that I answer the phone.
Right.
But
Yes.
that's what they're actually saying. Like, dude, when I think of Jason, I think of a dude that answers or responds quickly.
They
Yeah.
feel like a priority.
And
That's what they think
huge-
about me.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
they say that I'm great at negotiations and that I understand complex transactions. So even like 1031s, things like that, Jason understands all this stuff. I would never, ever run an ad saying that. But
love
now
that.
I will.
Right?
Because it doesn't matter what I think. It's what do
Totally.
they think? And they
Yeah.
they think of Jason. Dude, Jason makes it simple. Jason answers the phone.
I love that.
That's his brand.
Yeah,
that's who
that's-
he is.
that's-
Isn't that
fantastic.
amazing? By the way, side note on that, the power of just answering your phone, it blows my mind. The amount of professionals that
yeah.
do not answer their phone,
Zero.
do not return calls.
Yeah.
And you're having to chase after them.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about this. I've been trying to pick up a property, a new build,
Yeah.
and the two builders that I've been working with, I have had to call their sales office as well as their lender
Mm-hmm.
multiple times. And I'm like, I'm a ready, willing, and able buyer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, how are you not responding to me? How are you not calling me? It blows
Yeah.
my mind.
I know.
So just the simple power of answering your phone.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to do.
I told my wife yesterday, I said, the reason I make the money I make is because I'm a professional at following up with people.
Yes.
Yes.
That's all I do for a living. It's
love
just
it.
constantly, hey, just checking to see if you got my email yesterday. Next day, hey, just, I don't know if the last 2 emails, like, should I be calling someone else or what? And then they're like, oh, sorry about that. I've been busy,
Yeah.
You're a pro follow-up.
That's all I do.
Yeah.
It's just follow up with people constantly, man.
Well, when I first got my license, it's been now 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing an agent post that a
Yeah.
lot, that he answers his phone.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
So
is that a
what?
thing?
Yeah.
I'm like, do
Crazy.
people not answer their phone? And then I
Yeah.
realized
They don't
quickly
answer.
it's
Yeah.
it's mind boggling.
And it's getting worse And I understand why, by the way. I mean, you get the call, like your phone number's out there. You're getting 100 calls a day asking if you want to run ads or if you want leads or whatever. And so it gets tough, right? But if you, I mean, people are so, like, they don't wait around. So if someone's calling like on Zillow off your listing and you don't answer, then they'll call you.
100%.
Like they won't leave you a message. They'll just call him. He doesn't answer, they'll call him.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. So
it's true. Super honest moment. This happened to me and these guys know it because it really bummed me out. I had a problem with my phone. A lady called me to sell her house. I didn't get the message. It didn't even show up, register, nothing. She called on a Tuesday. I came on Friday.
Yeah.
She had already hired somebody
100%.
else.
Yeah.
And as she should. And I told her, I get it. Like as you should.
Yeah. Ain't nobody waiting anymore.
Right? So yeah.
But going back to your point, like not answering the phone.
Yeah.
We all are busy and we're all working with clients and doing things. We're in appointments, right? So you're not going to just pick up your phone. But the key then is what? To get right back to them immediately, or shoot them a text, say, "Hey, I'll be right with you," or something 100%. Like that. That's huge.
Yeah, and that's what I'm good at, and is follow up. So like I'm really quick to follow up. I almost want to tell people like, be careful telling me you think you might want to sell your house because I will never leave you alone. Like for years, I'll hit you up every 10 days. Hey man, just checking in. How are you doing? I never ask about the house, by the way, but I'll suddenly become very interested in your life. Hey, hope you have a great Thanksgiving. What'd you guys do for Thanksgiving? You know, and then they'll be like, oh, I did this. By the way, we're still thinking about, oh yeah, cool, man, whatever. 10 days later.
Right. But that's the difference between our business and other businesses is we don't sell a product. We really sell ourselves.
Yeah.
And we sell that relationship. I think it's such a good reminder for people, for us, for real estate professionals to remember that when our clients are buying or selling a home, that's a major transaction for in their life, right? Like one of the biggest. So handle it as such, right? And it's hard because we do this day in and day out. And sometimes we can forget the human side of it or what they're going through.
Yes.
I yesterday signed 2 new clients and I had this thought at the end of the day, like, these are major life decisions. Am I treating it as such? And I want to make sure I'm sensitive and I'm caring with them in that regard and that I'm available. You think about anytime you do something major, buy an investment property, buy a car, there's always that a few days later or the next day of like, oh, should I have done that?
By the way, can I give you guys a pro tip? That someone gave to me a while back. Well, actually, if you've ever read Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference or ever listened to him.
Negotiator.
Yes. So he was an FBI hostage negotiator. So the highest stakes possible. We're talking about lives that he's trying to barter for, basically, right? 2 things. One, he said that the home selling experience, I want to get back to that. But as far as the question is, did I make the right choice? Like I hired Janine, did I make the right choice?
Or just like, am I really ready to do this in my life?
Well, he says that everyone has that thought. So when you get hired and you leave, regardless of who it is, it's your best friend.
100%.
They will think, man, I hope I picked the right agent, right?
100%.
And so just a kind of a pro tip is have you or have your assistant, have someone send them like some crumble cookies or something that day or the next day and just say it out loud. Hey, I'm excited to sell your house and I want you to know you made the right choice.
You chose wisely.
You made the right choice because they're thinking it.
I'm looking at my assistant because we do. And so we're nodding.
It's
like,
dude, you're literally like, you're, because they're thinking it and
it.
you're saying, hey, I know what you're thinking.
I love
and
it.
You did make the right choice.
But like being mindful of that, right?
Absolutely.
And understanding that this isn't just something that they flippantly decided to do. This is a major part of their life and handling
the worst,
it.
by the way.
Right?
Selling the house is the worst. And
it
so
is.
that's what I'm going to tell you. Chris said that, and he was doing a real estate podcast, so it was real estate centric, his information. He said, it blew my mind when he said it. I thought, there's no way this is true. He said that if they build profiles, right? You're holding someone hostage, like they're going to try to build a profile. Who are you? What kind of a person you are, like trying to get in your brain. They also build profiles for the hostage's family, for example. How would they act when they find out that their kid is being held hostage and threatened murder, right? So that they can deal with people in the right way based off their mindsets. He said that a home seller's profile that they would build out is identical to a family member of the person being held hostage. Wow. And I'm like, there's no way, like, right? No way. But then when he starts talking about it, he says that when you're selling your house, so much of your past is wrapped up in that house, right? Like your child. The future, how is this going to turn out? Will it turn out good? Will it be bad? How long is this going to take? Is it going to end? They don't know any of this. So it's exactly the same as like, what's going to happen with my kid? Like, is this going to go right? And so it really helped me because sometimes home sellers do and say weird stuff. You're like,
right.
What is happening? Dude?
Right.
Like you think
right.
mentally something's short circuiting. That's why they're being held hostage.
Wow.
They're being held hostage. And so a way around that, and I used to hide from sellers. I mean, we didn't have to over the last couple of years. It's like, boom, it's on the market and offers.
Yeah.
But years ago and right now,
it takes 5 weeks to sell.
It takes some time, right?
Yeah.
And so in those days, I mean, dude, I would just hide. Like 3 weeks go by, no showings, and you're just like, dude, no calls. Like you're not talking to your seller. After I heard Chris say that, he said, you have to talk to them. You have to talk to them. And so when I do a listing appointment, I'll just tell them, like, here's the deal. It based off the comps in your neighborhood, it's going to take 4 weeks. It could take 6 weeks. Like that's kind of the average in the neighborhood. So I just want you to expect that, which they're like, okay, but they forget it 1 second later.
Totally.
And I say, hey, I'm going to call you every Wednesday and every Saturday. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And I do that.
Yes.
And I hate it.
Yes.
Right? Because like literally no showings.
Yeah.
And I already know I'm going to call and say, hey man.
Yeah.
Everything's the same.
I already know you know this, but there's been no showings.
Yes.
But listen, we're working hard. But Chris said that people can endure as long as you give them a timeline.
Oh, for
so
sure.
when your kid's being held hostage, you're about to go bananas, but you can make it 1 hour. If I say, hey, look, I'm going to call you in an hour, you can make it 1 hour. And then when you talk to them, you say, hey, I'll call you back in 1 hour, right? So you're giving them some kind of like relief.
Yeah.
And so
tactically, what do you do so that people don't fall through the cracks? What do you do? Obviously,
are we talking about like that are people that are actually working with them right now,
or
or
the people
leads?
that you're following up with every 10 days you mentioned?
Yeah.
How are you doing that? How are you making
super
sure
unprofessionally? So you're asking, like, I mean, I have a CRM and it's got so many unchecked, whatever. That's
tasks.
the way you should do it.
Yeah.
I just don't. I have a bizarre ability to
remember things.
I mean, it's all I think about is business and that kind of stuff. So like,
she has a great capacity for that too.
Yeah. I'm just driving. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, Andre.
Yep.
Boom. Yep. Done. And then I just know I can feel it in my bones. 7 days, 8 days have gone by. I'm like, dude, let me look. I'm like, yeah, dude, it's been 8 days.
It's an internal clock. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I don't forget anybody.
It's powerful though to have those conversations and have it before. We say this all the time. We want to answer the question before they even know they have it. And then sometimes in the hardest moments, and we've talked about this, we can psych ourselves up and be like, oh, they're mad at me. They're upset with me. And most of the time they're not.
Oh yeah.
But when we think that, then we show up different. So I have to mindset train myself to say, no, that's not what they're thinking.
Yeah, almost like you're bracing for impact.
I will often go even above and beyond and be like, hey, can I come over? Can we chat? Like, I want to just chat with you. And that is so powerful in those hard moments.
Yeah.
I just got a review from a client yesterday. Amazing client. We were on the market, went under contract, fell out on day 10 of the inspection period. Like one of those horrible, they had already bought another house.
Yeah.
Couldn't get their house under contract for another month. Finally got under contract, sold, whatever. My point is, it was a difficult process. It was not a fun process. And having to have those phone calls where there's no showings, having to go meet with them in person and rehash all of that. And we got it sold. He wrote an amazing review.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't mean, and I think this is an important point to communicate to clients, that this process is going to be easy. In fact, it's going to be bumpy.
Yeah,
right? There's going to be stress. There's going to be difficult moments, but we're going to walk it together, and you are in the best hands.
That's why I worry less about all the AI stuff taking over our jobs and stuff. I'm like,
totally
for sure
agree.
It will decimate 80% of the agents, I think, in 10 years. But there's always going to be someone that wants service. I think that, we might get pushed to high-end clients only.
Right.
But you can't take you can't take people out of real estate transactions.
Right.
You can, but it will hurt people.
It won't last.
It will hurt people. So
even when I bought my house, and again, I've shared this story multiple times, 6 years ago, the house I'm in now, as we were going through the process, I'm like, I wish I had a realtor to walk side by side.
I hire agents to sell me houses.
Right?
So even locally, like my own house, I don't do it myself because I know
she's done mine.
Yes.
Yeah, my wife's told me before because I've done it.
Yeah.
And the house that I live in now, I was going to represent myself, and she hears me talking on the phone to clients, right? So this guy's offering this place at $700. I was like, dude, I'll give you $625. You're not going to sell this place, blah, blah, all this stuff. And he was like, hey, I appreciate the offer, but no thanks. No counter, just like, no thanks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? You know what? I don't even need this house. You know what I mean? And then my wife really wants this house. So like a day later, she's like, so we're just not, and I'm like, he's being ridiculous. I'm like, all right, here's the deal. So hey man, I'll give you $650, not $1 more. This is my highest and best. not happening, dude. Like you're going to sit for 6 months. You're going to regret this. Again, hey man, I really appreciate the offer, but we're not interested. No counter offer. I'm like, you know what? I don't want the house. I was like super angry. My wife's like, I've heard you so many times telling people not to be emotional about this or whatever.
Right? It's true though.
You know what I mean?
It's so true.
I was getting emotional. I was getting angry. Like, what do you mean? Like,
yes.
And so I bought it for $700
because Mama wanted it.
Yeah. So, awesome. But I learned from that. You know what I mean? I was like, you know what? Even though I know how to do this, I forget how to do this when I'm involved.
But that's like a good reminder. That's what our clients are going through, right? All the time.
Yes.
And so walking through that and understanding and empathizing and being sensitive to it will make all the difference. I know we can keep going on and on, but I have so many things I want to get to, Jason, with you. So in one of our conversations, you had said to me, Janine, I feel like I'm here to help people with their taxes and to help people navigate that, especially as a real estate professional. It's a really tricky, difficult world. In fact, in that podcast we were talking about earlier, Cody Gibson had said on there when he didn't know, and he was like 2 years into it and he owed all these back taxes. He had no idea. So talk about that.
Yeah. So I actually just helped one of my painters that I refer a lot. I was talking to him about advertising on a site or whatever, and he mentioned something about having to pay a bunch of taxes. I said, hey, well, bro, you need to be buying houses or whatever. And he was like, man, I don't know. I don't know anything about that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I felt kind of like I'd let him down. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's my new mission now, is to teach people that stuff, because I had no idea. Jenny Vega, by the way, she told me 6 months ago that she felt angry because she's around some of the best agents for a decade. And she's like, not one time has anyone ever said, hey, Jenny, do you know about real estate investing? She's like, it made me mad once I understood like the tax, like legally you can pay zero taxes legally through the power of real estate, and how many you can get paid 4 different ways essentially with buying real estate. She's like, not one of these agents ever said a word to me. And I said, Jenny, to be honest with you, until 3 years ago, if someone called me and was like, hey, I'm an investor, I want to buy a house, I was actually nervous. Like, oh crap, they're going to say cap rate. And I've heard that, but I don't really know what it is. And I don't want to look like a fraud. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can help you. And I want to act like I know what I'm doing. But in my head, I'm like, dude, please, I don't know if I do know what you want. Mm-hmm. I know like pretty fixtures and stuff. I know power lines behind people don't like it. But I don't know what a cap rate exactly is. So
well, we studied it in real estate school.
Yeah, you learn it for a second and then you never hear it again, right? And so I just didn't feel competent with investors, right? And so I said, that's the thing, is a lot of these guys, they're not investors. Most of these big agents, I mean, they sell a ton of houses, and that's what they're good at. They buy stock, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And some of them own businesses, but they are not investors. And so that's why they don't tell you about it, because they don't know about it. And then some of the stuff you learn, you're like, there's no way that could be true. You know what I mean? Because it's so awesome.
Yeah.
There's no way that's true. And then you research and you ask your CPA and you're like, holy crap, how come this isn't like common knowledge?
Yeah.
And so that feels like my new thing in life. Like real estate changed my family tree. Like the amount of money the first year I got in real estate, I'd made $43,000 before that as a farmer or whatever. And my mentor asked me how much I want to make and what's my goal. And I knew goal meant like, say something crazy. And I said 60,000.
Oh,
mine was 50,000.
Yeah, I thought I was being greedy to say that out loud. I was like, I don't know, man, if I could make 60, and I can still see the stare. It lasted forever. And he goes, you need bigger goals. And I said, what? He goes, bro, I can make that in a month. And I was like, that's not true. Yeah. Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
I remember.
You're lying.
I go, is that doable? And he goes, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
So I thought, wow, dude, like this is crazy. And so, that was my first thing, right? Like, I want to figure out how to make money. Eventually, I want to figure out how to keep the money. You know what I mean? Yeah. A buddy of mine one day said, we were talking about, because, every year, December, January, February, like things slow down, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all that kind of stuff. And we know it's coming. I know it's coming. And every January, oh my God, I don't think I have it anymore. Like, I don't think I'm good at this anymore. And like, money's disappearing. And my buddy goes, dude, you make too much money to have no money. And I was like, yeah, where is where is it? I don't even know what I bought. You know what I mean? And so he was like, here, read this book. I'll teach you to be rich. And it was, it's a book about like how to kind of get wealthy or whatever. Right. And I read it and
I'll teach you to be rich.
Yeah. I'll teach you to be rich. And I just never seen this information before. It was talking about like credit card miles and points. You know what I mean? It talked about, different stocks you can invest in, all this kind of stuff. And if you just do this over this amount of time, whatever. And I was like, what the heck? You know what I mean? So I really quickly just started diverting like everything I had into stocks and all these different things. And I started like, holy crap, like, dude, I have some money now. Like I actually have something. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that changed my life.
For sure.
Actually ruined my life because it's all I could think about.
Wow.
And I was so mad that I just read this now. I should have read this a decade ago.
Yeah.
But and then I just went full in. I bought like 7 or 8 houses in 6 months.
I love it.
Wow.
Because of that book. I read that book. I read Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright.
Yep, that's a good one.
And then I heard Elon Musk. I don't know if I told you the story, but my wife, actually, if we can talk about this, I want to tell you a little bit about, so everyone probably remembers back in mid-March to mid-April 2020, right? That was the COVID deal. And remember, we weren't allowed to go anywhere. Like we had to stay at home unless you were going to like Home Depot or something like that.
Well, we were talking about this. Was it with you guys? And we were saying it was actually kind of a blessing, like kind of a cool time, right? It was the best. Go ahead. Sorry.
I understand some people died. I know people got hurt. Like there was all kinds of bad stuff. But for me, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me was that. Because I'd been married at the time for 15 years. And I've never asked my wife, like, hey, what is your dreams? Like, what is your goals? I've never asked her that ever. And we didn't have nothing to do. We just sat around for a month. And remember, the weather was awesome. Yeah. And we've got a little micro farm with pigs and alpacas and chickens and stuff. So we're just sitting on the back patio watching the animals. And one day I just said, hey, what are we doing exactly like with our lives? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I don't know what I mean. But like, I don't know. I just want to talk about like goals. Like what, like, I don't know. I just feel like I make a lot of money. I think I could make more money, but like, when is enough? I guess from a biblical standpoint, I'm starting to feel like when's enough? You know what I mean? Like, do I need more money? I don't think we do. And she's like, no. I'm like, well, what do we want? And she's like, I would like you to be around more with her, with the kids. And so I'm like, do you know what you're saying? Like, if I had to trade money for that, and she's like, that's what I want. And I'm like, but are you sure? You know what I mean? Are you sure? And so I threw it out there. I'm like, hey, what if we made $1 million a year, but I had to make 500, but I'm around, or I made $250,000, but I'm around. Are you okay with that? And she's like, I am. And I was like, because I'm going to have to hire people to do what I do. You know what I mean? And she said, yes. And so then we went further. So I want to talk about, because I think this is super important for everyone listening. We decided to what we call design our life.
So that was going to be my biggest question for you. Is how do you design your life?
That's what we did. And this is pretty rare. I don't think people design their life or what we call live a life by design, right? Like on purpose. I want my life to be on purpose.
I would say less than 5% of the population, maybe less than that.
Yeah. And it's not because they can't or won't. It's because they've never even heard this.
Totally.
That you should do this, right? Information is everything, right? It's just information. Someone says something and they're like, people listen to this after it gets released, they're going to be like this. Oh, dude, I like that idea. Never heard of it. And so they'll do it.
But can I add to that? Knowledge is power, as the saying goes, but I disagree. It's what you do with
execution,
that.
Of course.
Right? You can have all the information, but if you sit on it and don't do anything, it's worthless.
That's why
go take it and put it into action.
That's why they say the richest, the most wealthy real estate in the world is a cemetery.
Yes, for sure.
I believe that it's true.
Yeah.
There's so much potential that was never realized.
Yep. But you're 100% accurate. I've been to 100 conferences. Actually, I left Tom Ferry's conference because by noon I had enough information that I said, if I get any more, I'm just going to do nothing. And I'm going to be so overloaded. Totally. So we went back to our office and we implemented what we learned.
Totally.
And I was like, we'll do more if we get less information because we just need to execute.
That's smart.
And anyway, so I said, let's design our life. And I said, so let's start with money doesn't exist. There's no such thing as money. What would we do? How would we serve? How would we live? How would we give? Would we work? Where would we work? You know what I mean? We talked about all that stuff. And we talked about where, what we want our life to really look like. And my wife loves traveling. She's like, I'd really like to travel. I'm like, all right, well, let's be real specific. Like, how much? I don't know, 3 times a year. All right, for how long? You know what I mean? So 2 weeks at a time. I said, are we flying first class, or are we, you know what I mean? Are we staying in $500 a night hotels, or are we staying, you know what I mean? Like, so we designed it out. We ended up deciding it was going to be about $20,000 for each one of these trips 3 times a year. So 60 grand a year just for traveling. And I said, okay, so we have no debt at this point. So how much do we need for the rest of the year? Do you think we could live on 60 grand, 5 grand a month if we don't have any bills? Yeah, I think so. I said, all right, well, let's inflate that a little bit. Let's say 150. So we need 150 to live and to do this $60,000 of travel a year. And once I said that, I was like, dude, that's not a lot of money. You know what I mean? It's actually not a lot of money. And so I'm like, okay, and this has to be passive income. Like, it just shows up money. We want a beach house in Florida. We want a Montana ranch. So we're like, all right, that's 5 million. That's 5 million. So we have to buy those, pay them off. And we basically put a plan in action so that within 10 years, we could live that life. Now, if we hadn't been so specific about it, it would have been a pipe dream. Like, dude, for sure, there's no way you could travel 3 times a year and do 60. Like, there's no way. But once I saw the numbers, I was like, that's actually not that hard. Yeah. And then I got into short-term rental stuff. So I'm like, I already make the passive income part. I've already knocked that part out. I just have to buy the 2 properties and pay them off.
Love it.
So we're already doing, you know what I mean?
That's so powerful.
So it was really, really cool. And so now we, all of our decisions are pretty easy because we know what our baseline is. We know what the goal is. We know what the timeline is. And then we just say, hey, does this align with our vision? Right. And it's the same thing like when I'm eating, like I lost some weight. I'm trying to build some muscle now. And so when I see something, I say, well, let's get me closer to my goal or 100%. Further from it. You know
Isn't that a powerful question in everything of our life? In every area of our life, if we were to ask ourselves that, is what I'm eating, what I'm doing, what I'm listening to, who I'm with, is this getting me closer to where I want to be?
That's right.
Or is it pulling me away?
Yeah.
If you just gauged just life based on those things, hugely powerful.
Yep. That, and then when I'm working in business, I ask myself, would my wife be proud of me if she saw what I was doing right now? So if she was over my shoulder, would I be on Facebook just doing this, or on Instagram looking at reels? Like, would she look at me and say, hey, you're doing the right thing for my family? You know?
I do that, but I do it with my kids. I've said this before, when I'm working out at the gym, whatever I'm doing, how would my kids view what I'm doing right now? And it always makes me level it up, step it up. Right. Yeah.
And you ask the question because you already know, like, you're slacking there and you're like, all right, I got to
suck it up, Janine.
Yeah. That's your competitive spirit too. You know what I mean? Like I was telling, I work out every day with a friend of mine, but he doesn't work out with me on Wednesdays or Saturdays or Sundays. And so I have my own home gym, but I got a Planet Fitness deal because it's like $25 a month and actually $10 a month if you just want like their basic deal. And so I was like, I'll just go there because I already know how it is. Like when I work out with him, he's bigger than me, but like I can't lose. And so like, I like work harder than him. Like when he leaves, like I'll do some more reps or whatever, just so that I'm never like, there's no way he's going to put more weight on than me. Like I'm just not going to let it happen. But on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, I got no one to compete against. So I go to the gym and I'll be on the treadmill and some dude's like walking, I'm running. Right. You know what I mean? I see someone else running. I'm like, is that 5 miles per hour? I'm like 6 miles per hour. And then I'll be like 15 minutes in, like, dude, I'm done, but dude, he's still running. Right. I ain't getting off. I'll just run. All of a sudden they get off. I'm like, all right, boom.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it's like a disease or something. I don't know what it is, but there's no way I'm getting off before this guy that I don't know.
But that's the power of accountability, of a team, of all of that, right? Yeah. Not doing it alone. I love that.
Yeah. Instead of being, oh man, look at that. Instead of being, embarrassed by it or whatever, I just use it as a weapon. Like I already know, like I want to get better. I know I'm competitive, so I'll just put myself in an environment where I'll see someone else lifting. I'm like, is this 50-pound weights, dude? I'll do 60. Like I don't even know this guy, and I'm like trying to lift more. And even
just like I was at the gym the other day, and I was telling Ray this. My trainer came up, and he twice in our workout added more weight onto my thing
without telling you.
No, he did, but I would have never. If I would have just been left to myself, I would have never thought I could do that. Yeah, then I did it, and I was like, it's not even that hard.
Dude, that's my buddy does that. He will, at the end of reps, like let's say we're doing bench, he'll just throw an extra 25s on both sides, and I'm like, what are we doing? He was like, it's visual. Right. Just push it once or twice, just so you can be like, oh, dude, like I did that.
Yeah.
And so we do that. He does it all the time. Like at the end of the workout, he's like, just throw on another 50 pounds. I'm like, bro, I can barely lift that, whatever. He's like, you can do it, dude. It's mental. It literally is mental. And then when you see it happen, you're like, oh,
right?
I am stronger than I thought.
Well, it was so funny. My son said to me, is that why you were in such a good mood when you left the gym the other day, Mom? I was like, probably. Because I was super proud of myself.
It is awesome. We keep track. So like I can see where I was. And then technically, I don't know if there's a lot of different advice out there, but if you can get 10 reps like easily 2 weeks in a row, then you should be going up 5 pounds upper body, 10 or not 5 pounds, 5% and 10% on the lower body. And so I've been doing that religiously, but my app tells me where I'm at today. So I come in, I'm like, okay, I was 125 pounds. So I put 125 pounds on it. But if you go back in history, you're like, dude, I was doing like 70 pounds 2 months ago. You know what I mean? That's super cool to see.
It is. It's so cool.
It's super, super cool to see because like you're so much stronger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's awesome.
We do the same thing. So I work out with one of my buddies in his garage most of the time, and we have on a mirror where we were.
Yes.
And we haven't missed a day in 4 months.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish, another thing, that's why I wish I would have got into this way sooner in life because I never worked out. I gained weight, had all kinds of like little health issues or whatever. And I started going to a naturopath doctor and they pull my blood every 3 months. And they basically, it's cool because they can tell you exactly what's happening with you. I mean, they can pull your blood and be like, all right, so your sexual libido is probably pretty low. You probably wake up with like sore heels. You probably have to pee in the middle of the night. And you're like, did my wife call you? You know what I mean? Like whatever it is they're saying to you, you're like, wait, how do you know that? Like the blood doesn't lie. Like
it's crazy.
This is too high or this is too low. And then the cool part is they say, all right, take this supplement or do this, and you can fix that. And so it's pretty cool because I literally used to say all the time, like, oh, my back hurts, but it's because I'm getting older or whatever. I thought everything was getting older. It's not true. It's not true at all.
Yeah, Jason, we can keep going on, but I want to talk about really quick your Airbnbs because you own several and you own them all over the country.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so I listened to Bigger Pockets podcast, and Avery Carl did a podcast. This is where kind of everyone got into Airbnbs. This was back in 2020. I think hers aired maybe 21. And at the time, I had long-term rentals, and so the rule of thumb on long-term rentals, if you can make $100 or $200 a month in positive cash flow, that's a no-brainer, right? And so if you have 10 of those houses or 20 of those houses, and you can make 5 or 10 grand a month and retire and make some money. So sounds pretty cool, right? So I came up with this idea. I told my wife, I said, hey, I want to get 20 houses in 10 years. And if each one of them by the end of the 10 years were making $500 a month in positive cash flow, we would have whatever that number, I think it's 10 grand or whatever. And the next day I heard Elon Musk, I heard a quote by him that said, I don't understand 10-year goals. He said, I don't know why you wouldn't just collapse that into 6 months. You would get so much more done. Like literally the day after I made a 10-year goal, he was like, that's dumb. And so I was like, man, that guy owns so much stuff. He's probably smarter than me. So I told my wife, I was like, hey, we have to buy 20 houses in the next 6 months. Which is why, I told you I bought like 8 houses or whatever in 6 months. It's because of that.
Yeah.
So the way that I operate, I mentioned that I'm kind of competitive, right? So I would have told everyone, hey, I'm going to buy 2 houses a year. And I would have bought 3, smashed my goals and told everyone like, dude, I am so good.
Right.
I bought 3, bro. My goal was 2. Probably talking to someone that bought none. So they're like, dude, he's killing it, right? That's what I would have done. And because nothing else changed in my life, I didn't make more money. I didn't have more resources. The only thing that changed was my goal was now not 2. It was 20. That was it. And so what happened was I could have easily figured out the 2 a year, but 20 is different, right? So you call the lender, qualified, call lender, qualified, call lender. Dude, your DTI is getting up there, bro, Okay, well, can I use the rents or whatever? No, not until you've had them for 2 years. Oh, well, who can do this loan? That was the difference. Who can do this? Well, have you talked to someone that can do a DSCR? What is that? You know what I mean? Debt coverage service. Never heard of it. Can you put me in touch? Boom, done. Next house. I don't know if we can do that. Well, who can do it? Have you talked to hard money lender? I've heard of that. What is that?
Yeah.
Right? That was the difference. I just started asking questions, and I found out that and then I started partnering with people. People are like, hey man, I see what you're doing. I love it. I wish I could do that. I'm like, hey, if the partnership's right, we could make something work. Well, what do you mean? Well, I know how to operate. I know how to find the asset. I know how to manage the asset. I don't have any money. You got money? Yeah, I got money, but I don't want to manage it. I don't want to find the asset. that sounds like a good partnership, right? So we just created companies, and people would literally get the loan in their name, use their money for down payment, and then put it into an LLC that we co-owned. And then I take it over after that, and they just sit back and collect checks and don't have to do anything with it.
Can you tell us your best performing Airbnb?
Yeah, all of them, all the best performing ones are in Tennessee. I've got 4 in the Smoky Mountains, and
like Pigeon Forge area.
You're right out, yeah. Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, Gatlinburg. It's like like this one area where it's like Disneyland in the mountains.
I may have stayed in your Airbnb when we.
Well, there's like 10,000 of them out there, but it's just Prince Cash. I mean, it's Smoky Mountains, that entrance there in Gatlinburg. It's the #1 most visited national park in America. Last year, I think they had 12.9 million visitors. The #2 park was 7 million. So it's like not even close. It's just so much traffic there. So that's where we bought our first one. And it was, I don't want to say it was scary, but I mean, like most people think, oh, if I'm going to invest, I'm going to invest locally. Well, I already knew myself that if a toilet broke, I'm going to go over there and handle it. You know what I mean? And I already knew I don't want to do that. I want to hire people. But I won't. I'll be like, dude, it's just right down the road. I'm just going to go handle it. So I purposely bought out of state so I couldn't do anything. Like if something broke, I had to like run it like a business. That's what I wanted. And so I bought out there, and man, I bought that place for $565. Thought I was getting robbed. My mortgage was like $2,500, and I'm like, dude, I don't know if this is going to work. And then that first year we did $120,000 in gross revenue on that property. And I was like, whoa, dude, this works. I bought another one, and that one was for $662. I mean, it was just going up. Oh my God, my mortgage is going to be, I don't know if this is going to work. I did $135,000 on that property in a year. So, the Smokies are awesome, awesome. And then I did buy one locally in Gilbert, and then I managed one for somebody in Mesa. We bought one up in Lakeside. The best ones are out in Pigeon Forge. We do really well out there. Between the 6 that we own, they gross a little over $500,000 a year.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Just way more than $200 a month.
Right. Tell me about, because another thing that you do that we've chatted about is Turo. Yeah.
So that was a tax strategy. I became obsessed with paying no taxes. If anyone reads the book, Tom Wheelwright's Tax-Free Wealth, he basically starts out the book with something that I already know that you'll shake your head in agreement with. He says, do you believe the tax system is a punishment system? And especially if you own a business, you're like, oh yeah, I feel that way. Next question is, but do you believe we need some tax revenue for police, firefighters, and roads? So again, you're going to be like, yeah, we do. And then he says, what if I told you that the most patriotic thing you could do is pay 0 taxes? Well, that's the opposite of what I just shook my head to, right? And so he explains in the book that the tax code is not a punishment system. It's actually an incentive program. The government forces behavior modification 2 ways. Either they put you in jail, like, hey, don't do this. It's bad for society. If you do these things, we have to put you in jail. Or, hey, if you'll do these things, we'll actually give you money.
Reward you.
And so the tax code is actually, it's just behavior modification. They want us to do certain things. So they say, hey, if you'll do these things, we'll give you a reward.
Really quick, Jason, super cool, because I read that book and I've listened to it. I'm almost through listening to it, right? And the way you just summed it up was awesome.
Okay, good.
It
kind of clicked or whatever.
Well, no, I just love that. I mean, you like compressed everything
the whole book,
in like a couple sentences. That was cool.
And so the government loves to say we created jobs, right? Yeah. They love to say we created 250,000 jobs this month or whatever. Well, they didn't create anything, but they incentivize you and I to hire people. And they say, hey, if you'll hire people, we'll give you some sort of a tax break. But one of the best kind of hacks of all time is the way that they treat real estate investors. They tried to do government housing. I think we call it the slums. We call it the projects, right? They're not good at it. Just like everything, they're not good at it.
They're not good at it.
But they do realize, man, people do need housing. And so they basically say, hey, if you'll house someone, you'll probably do it better than us, man. Instead of sending us the money where we would make the housing, you just keep it. That's kind of what they say. And so they have this thing called depreciation, which is just an accounting term. They basically say the shell of this house is going to just crumble into the ground and turn into dust in 27 and a half years is their calculation. And so if you buy $1 million property to rent to someone else, they won't let you take land. As dumb as the government is, they understand land cannot blow it up, you can kick it, you can dig it, it's still there. So you can't depreciate that. So let's say the land's worth $100,000. Now you have $900,000 worth of property, and they let you pretend that it will just disappear in 27 and a half years. So every year you get a write-off of about $30,000 every year for 27 and a half years on that property. So if you make $30,000 in income, you get to tell the government, I lost $30,000, your tax basis is zero. I was like, that's like magic, because I didn't lose the money. And in fact, the value of the property went up. It's actually worth more money. In fact, the renter actually paid my mortgage, which means they paid down some of my principal. Plus I made a couple $100. You know what I mean? So you get paid all these different ways. The government knows that. It's not a scam. It's an encouragement. They just need you to buy houses so that other people can rent them. And so, and then in 2017, the Trump tax cuts, they actually did something called accelerated or bonus depreciation, where they let you pull out pieces of the home like paint and flooring that actually does wear out and does need to be replaced. They generally let you depreciate those over 5, 7, or 15 years. They let you take it all in year one. That's why I went on a buying spree, and that's why a lot of people did, was because if you make $1 million in income, like how do I not pay taxes on that legally? And so I buy all these houses, and then I got to take all that bonus depreciation. Literally, you could get $1 million in write-off, and now you made no income, which means I had more money to invest, which means I got more write-offs, and it's like a spiral. So the way I look at it is the tax code, if you want to learn it, it forces you to become wealthy, forces you. Like you don't have an option. Like I can't stop buying houses because I'll have to start paying taxes, you know what I mean? And I legally don't want to do that if I can avoid it. And so every year I'm like, man, I got to go buy something. So Turo was that. I ran out of time to buy a house. And I knew I had a certain level of income that I just couldn't hide it. I was going to have to, pay taxes on it. And it was going to be about $75,000 in taxes that just disappears. And so I bought 3 cars, put them on the Turo platform. So I started a new business. And those cars are 100% write-off through Section 179 of the IRS tax code. You can depreciate them if they're over 6,000 pounds. So a couple Broncos and a Escalade, and so I made no money that year, and paid no taxes. So essentially, I got 2 cars. I got the Escalade for free. Like the government partnered. That's, by the way, that's what they're doing. They're partnering with you on this business. And why do they want us to buy cars? Because they believe, for whatever reason, that's one of the industries that gets picked, but they believe that is keeping money flowing. They want cars being sold. And so that's why they give you that benefit, I should say. And so that's what I did. And so I operate a Turo business now. I personally don't want another job. So I hired somebody to operate that is an operator, and they have 30 or 40 cars already. And it's just part of their fleet. And, they operate it, they take a certain cut, and then they send me the difference. So good. It's been pretty cool. It doesn't make a ton of money. It depends. Like my strategy was more higher end stuff. So I get like a better clientele, but I don't necessarily make it more money. I got another friend that does lower end stuff. He says like kind of the Walmart of customers, but he buys cars for $8,000, you know what I mean? Just cash. And he'll make $400 to $600 profit every month per car. And so when you just say $500, if you want to make $5,000 a month,
have 10 of them.
Yeah, you just do the math. Like, what do I need to do? You need to buy 10 cars, and then you just run them, and now you're making $5,000 a month. And then if you get to that level, by the way, and I'm gonna blow up now, everyone's gonna buy Turos, but if you get to that level, then because like you pay an operator 20, 25, 30%. That's a lot. But now if you have a fleet of 10 cars, maybe you buy 10, you just hire an employee for $3,000 a month, and that's all they do is your Turo stuff, which means they work 20 hours a week. They're like, dude, I'm getting overpaid. And you're like, I'm paying less. And it's a win-win.
Let's do it.
You know what I'm saying?
I love it. I love it.
You know what I'm saying? So now you just take $1,500 of your $5,000, and now you're making $3,500 a month, and you don't do nothing.
We've talked about it.
You don't do nothing.
Jason, last major question. Talk about your faith and your family and how that impacts, because one of the things that I love about you is you really do love your family, and that's a priority. So talk about that real quick.
Yeah. So I don't know how to, I found Christ a little over a decade ago, maybe 15 years ago. When I met my wife, my girlfriend at the time, obviously, my only questions to her, I saw her, you're beautiful. We like the same music. I said, are you into like God or any of that stuff? She's like, nope. And I'm like, yes. And then, do you want kids? She's like, no. I'm like, yes, dude. Like, that's all I care about. Don't be one of those Jesus people. Don't be into kids, right? And now we have 3 kids at a Christian private school, and we love God. You know what I mean? So it's just so funny how your life can change.
For sure.
But I found Christ through Dave Ramsey of all people, kind of. I would listen to his stuff trying to understand money, and he would always say, by the way, this was in this thing called the Bible, or by the way, this guy Jesus said that. And I'd be like, whatever, dude. I just want to learn the information. I learned over years that he's not money advice. He's disguised as money advice, but he's trying to lead people to Christ. So I would hear that stuff and kind of soften my heart to it. And then a buddy of mine invited me to church, and I would have said no. I would have said no any other time, but of course God knew like I was ready. And my church wasn't my church at the time, but they always say, hey, our next series is gonna be 5 weeks. It's gonna be about whatever, right? At the end of one, they'll tell you on the next one. The next one was about giving. It was about being generous. And my buddy was like, dude, and I'm not like bragging or whatever. He was like, Jason is he likes that. Like, he's generous, he's kind. I feel like he'd vibe with this message. Like, and so God had put it on his heart to ask, like, dude, ask him.
I love that.
And so he was like, hey man, you can say no 51 other times out of the year, but like you can't say no this week. You got to come with me to church. So I go to the church with him. And I literally thought like I asked him like, will people know I'm not a Christian and stuff? You know, like I thought they would see and be like,
be like,
who's
wait,
this guy? And I'm like, what do I wear? He's like, dude, God sees you every day. Like you're good. And the very first thing they did was give the little satchels and ask for money, right? Which my parents never took me to church because they didn't like that. They said, oh, I think all they care about is money. I can love God from home or whatever. So that was my upbringing. And so sure enough, they bring those out, and in my head, I'm like, dude. And the whole thing was like this it was like motivational speaking with, by the way, this was in this book. Right. And I was like, for 40 minutes, I'm like, dude, I want to like get up and rate, like, yes, dude. They were talking about being more generous. I'll never forget this. The pastor told this story about, he said that a friend of his had got a Jaguar, and he was driving it in Chicago, and he had to get gas, and he like had to get gas. Like, and he got off at an exit that he was like, man, I probably shouldn't be in this neighborhood, but I don't have a choice. So he gets out and he stops, and he says, this little boy is just staring at his car. And he's like walking in to pay for the gas, and he's looking, and he's just watching this kid just stare in his car. And he's like, dude, I'm going to come out and there's going to be no wheels on this thing, you know? And the guy comes back out, and the boy's still looking at it. And he looks over at him and goes, mister, where'd you get this car? And he said he got angry. He was like, dude, none of your business, dude. You know what I mean? That's what he's thinking. Like, none of your business. And he goes, man, my brother gave me this car. The kid goes crazy and was like, whoa, mister, oh my God, your brother gave you this car? Oh my God, man, your brother gave this to you. Like, oh man, I wish I was like your brother. Oh. Now, you thought I was going to say, I wish I had a brother like yours.
Yes.
And I was like, dude, goosebumps. I'm like, whoa, dude, I wish I was like him.
Wow.
And I was like, dude, this church is awesome. Like, this is so cool. And right about then, they were like, all right, they're sending the money satchels back down. I was like, oh, I knew it. They got you all hyped up. You got to give more. You got to give more. And the satchels start coming down. And he says, hey, we've never done this before, but don't worry. We're not asking for money. In fact, inside these satchels, there's envelopes. Each one has $20, $50, or $100 in it. I want you to reach in and take money out. They gave away $250,000 that weekend. My first time at church. Wow. I'm like, church is awesome, dude. Like, they give you money here. And they knew what I knew because I'm a marketer. And they were basically saying that you will become addicted to being a giver once you start. You'll realize, dude, it is truly better to give than receive. For sure. But it's hard for you to turn loose your money. So they said, here, take this money and give it and see how it feels. And so that's what they did. And I was like, dude, this is kind of cool. So I just started coming back every week. And my wife, she would, are you seriously going to go again? I'm like, you should come with me. It's fun. And it took a while, but she finally started going. And we just really, I just really connected with Christ and the people there. I had people, I swear to God, I could call them at 5 a.m. and say, bro, I need you to come mow my lawn. And they wouldn't say, like, can I come later? They would be like, I'm on my way. You know what I mean? Right. And just weird. And I started realizing, like, what is different about these people than I have ever met. Yeah. And it was, they all went to church. Like, that was the one thing. And so when I became dedicated to Christ, like anything, I get pretty in. Like, I'm like, if I'm in, I'm in. And family is a real big deal, right? And I started being around a lot of men that I realized they'd say they love their family, but they didn't act that way. And they would treat them in a ways that I'm like, dude, not consistent with, which, by the way, we're all not consistent in whatever. But I just knew that I wanted to be different. Like, I see people with struggling marriages behind the scenes. They're like, man, marriage not well. But I think it's probably common to say that a lot of men, their love language is physical touch. And so a lot of men are like, dude, yeah, it's not happening the way I want it to. And just complaining about stuff. And I never forgot somebody told me that what my wife does is none of my business. Because I don't want to say I own her, but I'm like, we're married. Like, I feel like you have a responsibility. Like, I have to do certain things. You have to do certain things. And that was a bad attitude. And I got this new piece of information that said, hey, what she does is none of your business. That's for her. You have to be the light of Christ. So regardless of because for a long time, I loved my wife. Yes. I loved her I loved her when.
Yes.
But I didn't love her like Jesus loved me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that really hit me hard. So I was like, all right, I am going to do my part regardless of what she does.
Amazing.
And so what I found was when you start to rise, they see that. And I think they almost feel like maybe I'm going to get left behind. So she started to reciprocate. At first, though, by the way, it was worse. They're like, what are you up to?
Yeah, right.
What are you up to?
What do you want?
But over time, it's like, dude, I think my man is becoming a new man.
That's awesome.
And
that is amazing.
Yeah. So that's always been important to me ever since I kind of.
So you would do things without the expectation of anything in return.
Specifically, not expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
I used to always think, man, if I do this, I'm probably gonna get that, right? And it was a bad attitude.
But that's the message of Christ, right? He loved us. He died for us before we were even accepting of him.
That's right.
Right. And so it's the perfect example.
I think contentment was another part of it too. Jenny, is like for a long time, by the way, with designing our life, we designed our life so that we knew exactly what it looked like when we achieved it. And I didn't say, well, what's next? Because that was a problem for me a lot of years in business is I would, I want to get X amount of sales. So it's a peak. It's a mountaintop. I can see it. I get to it. I'm like, there's another mountaintop. And I was never happy. I was always like, okay, well, now I got to get this. Well, Janine did more than me. Like, now I got to do more than her or whatever, right? And we discussed out loud, what does our mountaintop look like? And so that we know what it looks like. And when we get there, we'll look around and we'll see bigger ones, but we'll say, that's fine. That's good for them.
I love it.
But that's not for us. Like we said, this is what we wanted.
Yeah.
So let's be content.
Yeah.
And that was the big thing with my wife is like.
And grateful
and content. I was never content. She could never do enough. Like, I'm just making this stuff up, by the way, but for a lot of guys, let's say it's sex. Like, she could have sex with me every day. I'd find something else. Now she's not washing my clothes or whatever. And then she does that every day. And then it would always be something, always be something. And so I just realized like, dude, I got to just be happy. Like I would picture her sometimes saying like, hey, I'm going to leave you. I'm out of here. And I'm like, how quick would your attitude change if your wife was like, I'm out, I'm done. There's nothing you can say. Like, I am done. You'd be like, dude, what do I got to do to fix this? Like you would change, you would do all kinds of weird stuff.
Right.
And so I was like, why don't I just do that? I read a book by Reggie Miller called What Radical Husbands Do. And
Reggie Miller?
Reggie Miller. It's Regi.
Okay.
Might not be Miller, because now you said that it's a basketball player. But What Radical Husbands Do. That's the name of the book. He really, this is a biblically based book. So it was challenging because it was basically like, dude, you look in the mirror, like everything your wife does that you don't like, your fault. Ooh. You're like, wait, no, not really.
Yeah.
But he really challenged, and he had this concept that I've adopted for the last decade of pretending that, because in America, your spouse can leave you. Like I know there's some religions, some countries where like you kind of can't or whatever. Here, like in any day, they can wake up and be like, dude, I'm out, and you can't stop it. Like they can leave. It's like, it scares me actually thinking about it. You know what I mean? But he said he pretended that he was on a 1-day contract, and he said, and I do this to my clients too. What if? Because they signed something saying they'll be with me for 6 months, but in my mind, I'm like, they're on a 1-day contract. Right. So how would I treat them? How would I serve them if I knew today was the day, and at the end of the day, they were going to decide if they're going to do another day with me?
That's powerful.
I would treat them way different. You know what I mean? Powerful. I treat my wife way different when I have 1 day with her.
That's powerful, Jason.
Andy Elliott says, treat it as if it's the first day again.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Because, dude, it's crazy. Like, there's a guy named Garrett J. White. He does a program, Wake Up Warrior. I went through his program, and he just destroyed me because I thought, like...
Did you go to it?
I've done Warrior. Yeah, I've done not with him, but when they used to do online stuff, I have the $1,000 Warrior book or whatever. But so we do the calls, like we do weekly calls or daily calls, and he would basically, it's the same thing. He would challenge, he would be, like, hey, again, I'm just bringing up sex because it's a common thing for married men to say, like, they were like, look at you, by the way, like like, have you gained weight over the years? Have are you still pursuing your wife like you used to?
Yeah.
Like, dude, when's the last time you washed a dish, dude?
Right.
And you're like, that's her deal. Like, I'm busting my ass making money or whatever. And like, so what? Like, who cares, bro?
Right.
And so he would just challenge you on certain beliefs. And then, so I'd be like, all right, when's the last time you taken your wife on a date?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, like a date, dude? Like
you
years, probably, man. And so then I was like, all right, let's do dates, right? And so then we do dates, and then it didn't matter what level you got to. He would like say, not enough. So now I'm taking her on dates, and he'd be like, hey, so did you just like wear sweatpants and jump in the car and be like, well, where do you want to go?
Right.
I'm like, well, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, dude, we've been together for a long time. Like, you know what I mean? And he was like, but is that what you used to do?
Right.
Because that's not what you used to do. I guarantee what you used to do is you used to go buy a new pair of shoes.
Right.
You'd make a mixtape for the night. You plan out like where we're going. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what you used to do.
Totally.
And I was like, dude. So I started every Wednesday we'd go on date night. Dude, I'd go to Nordstrom Rack. I'd get a new shirt, new pair of pants. Like I'd literally have a date outfit every week. And I would make a playlist and I would plan out the night. And then he would be like, all right, but are you doing, it would always be something bigger. But there's always more, you know what I mean, to learn.
Yeah. Jason, you have shared so much that I think our audience is going to be inspired by. They're going to be motivated. They're going to learn. They're going to be encouraged.
They're going to look up some books.
Super cool. Get some books. So, okay, I'm going to do a super quick little speed round and then we'll kind of wrap it up. What's your favorite food?
Oh, it used to be pizza. I haven't eaten pizza in a year though.
Really?
Yeah, I gained a lot of weight and I lost a lot of weight, and I used to. This is not a joke. I ate pizza probably 5 nights a week for probably 10 years. I swear.
So it's not pizza.
So what's your favorite now?
Man, I just drink protein shakes and eat protein bars and chicken and eggs and stuff like that. I would say tacos. Let's say tacos.
Tacos are good.
Tacos are good, and I still have those sometimes.
Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite sound?
My daughter's laughing.
Oh,
that's good.
Yeah.
Favorite vacation?
Like ever? We went to Paris and London this year, and it was really unique. It was really cool.
Favorite book?
Okay, Bible.
Besides scripture.
But Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes.
By Robert Kiyosaki.
That's mine. It was the
it's everybody's
changer.
If you're
life changer.
Right.
Yeah, it's such new information.
Yeah.
Once you hear it.
It's what gets you on a path. Yes.
And it's impossible to read it and not. Well, that's not true. I did read it once and I didn't get it.
Really?
And then I came back to it and read it and I was like, what? Like,
yeah.
I missed it the first time.
Okay. And then last one. Do you have a favorite podcast?
Bigger Pockets probably is my favorite. Sometimes I listen to Andy Frisella's podcast, but I've been trying this year to listen to less news because I find it just makes me angry and it doesn't change anything other than making me mad. So I try to not listen to it much. Agreed. But I like him because he yells a lot.
Thank you, Jason. Yeah. Thank you for being so open and honest and just for sharing. And this
I appreciate it because, I think the world's so negative. Yeah. Right? There's so much negative and we pick that stuff out. And I think we almost look for the negative. But this opportunity to me was what we call it a glimmer. So like my daughter's voice, like that's a glimmer. So I try to walk through life and look for the glimmers instead of looking for like the negative things. Like a footprint when I was working out this morning, I noticed my daughter was walking barefoot and I saw a footprint in the dust. That's a glimmer. Glimmer is hope. Like a glimmer is like the world is going to be okay. You know what I mean? That. And so today was that. Today was a glimmer. I just felt really privileged to be here, to be able to talk to you guys and see your smile. And
we appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks for listening to The Real Deal, where real estate meets real life. Make sure to follow or subscribe to the Home Selling Team on YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify to stay up to date with our podcast.